Hi, everyone. So thrilled to be here today, inspired and sort of intimidated by the collective brain power in this room. But also, there is one thing true about strategists. It is how validating and safe the environment is. So really looking forward to examining the changes happening in our industry with you all. As Tamash said, my name is Juie Shah, and I'm a group strategy director at DDB Chicago. And the topic that I have chosen to talk about is strategists, not strategy, the backbone of change management. And made that little tweak a few weeks ago because it's an important shift. It's the people that bring the strategy forward. Still getting used to this guy. Awesome. So I chose this image of a group of humanoids building a bridge between two islands because this last year has felt like a lot of bridge building between the past and the future, between human-powered creativity and intelligence and AI-powered creativity and intelligence, between core marketing needs and new marketing needs. A lot of bridge building. And today, I'm so thrilled to be in a room full of bridge builders. Are you kidding me? We're united by our love for problems. It's probably something we should be thinking about. Stability, that's for the uninspired. We see opportunity when others see chaos, and there's no greater thrill than the moment that it finally clicks into place. Let me tell you about how I made my way into this world and this room. I had a really stable life in India. I worked on my family business of bonsais and tropical plants and water lilies and all things green and zen and beautiful. And apparently it got too relaxing. And so I flew 8,000 miles away to the advertising industry, and I'm working on the military. So from one shade of green to a slightly different shade of green, it was a massive cross-continental bridge to cross. And so I feel perfectly equipped to talk about change. But if I were to get into any of your stories, I've spoken to so many of you today, I feel like we've all built pretty massive bridges and managed some remarkable change. And that's what strategists do. From the battlefield to the boardroom, strategy has always been about progressing in an environment of change. From the ancient era of Sun Tzu and the art of war, where strategy was all about adaptability to terrain, to weather, to enemy disposition, to the medieval period of my good friend Machiavelli, who found core strengths in those around him and built alliances to prepare for potential threats, to the industrial age of Henry Ford, such a great strategist that figured out how to use interchangeable parts and assembly lines, resource management strategy, to modern-day business strategy of Porter's competitive advantage and Kim's blue ocean strategy, finding your edge and taking it to uncontested market spaces. It was always strategists that ushered in new eras of victory, of peace, of industrial boom, of technological advancement. And that is because in a world where most people's first reaction is, oh dear, what do I do? A strategist usually says, oh, this is fun. It's a shift from apprehension to anticipation. And that shift, that change, isn't just about managing fires, it's about progressing and growing through those fires, and convincing everyone else that the fire is actually a feature, not a bug. So going back to my personal story, when I was new to the US, I decided to make this switch. And I was new here, and I knew nothing about this country. I knew nothing about its pop culture. I used the word home run absolutely wrong in a client meeting. It was tragic. And I had a thick accent to top it off, which I still have for the most part. And it felt like a precipice where I really need to think about, what is it that I want to become? How do I bring Juie 2.0 into this world and figure out how I actually survive, much like the precipice that we're all collectively standing on today. From agency consolidations, mass layoffs, a demand for expanded capabilities from our clients, the integration of AI. it's time to collectively ask ourselves that question. What is the brief that we want to write? What era of strategy do we want to usher in? And it means something to ourselves and our careers, to the growth and sustenance of our agencies, but it also means something to the world. What kind of brands do we want to build? What kind of a marketplace do we want to shape? And really, how do we want to even impact society? Let's explore. Because we love to simplify, I simplified a whole host of changes into 3 big buckets, sort of bubbled up to these 3 buckets of evolving client needs, evolving technology, and evolving talent. And I'd love to examine each with you all and think about the ways in which our discipline can show up to manage this change. So starting with evolving client needs, 10 years ago, I was working on a car brand, and they came to us and they said, hey, we need a new commercial. Easy, done. 5 years ago, while working on the largest insurance company in the country, we created a behavioral economic strategy for a massive media ecosystem. We also did a CRM strategy, a little bit more complicated, right? Today on the US Army account, we continue to make massive omni-channel campaigns, but we have a pretty significant part of our budget allocated to innovation prototyping. We're also doing future-proofing work for the Army to help them think through the larger shifts in talent, in manpower, in warfare, in work, in education, so that they're able to predict what the next 30 years of national security might look like. So it's no longer your average Wednesday in an advertising agency. And so this current landscape has shifted from core marketing communication needs to bigger ecosystems, which we're all doing, to now even the need to have a marketing engine that not just solves for the needs of our clients, but also predicts the future for them. And this engine is no longer about just creating a Super Bowl spot and calling it a day. It's about creating a brand orchestra where we have 40 violinists, a dude on the triangle, maybe 3 trumpets, making all these instruments work together. It's about the brand system, but it's also sometimes about a communication agnostic input. Advertising, how does advertising do something that's communication agnostic? Speed and velocity of activation, it's adaptability of context. It's having a self-improving mechanism. So it's no longer just about that brand system. And so the way we like to think through this evolving client needs is what I like to call the plus brief. I think we strategists are always a little extra, right? We're always like, how might we? How can I do this? What if I do that? And we feel a little constrained by the assignment brief at hand. But I think in this world, it's safe to free ourselves. So on the US Army account, we had an optimization coming up. And instead of approaching it just like an optimization, we decided to approach it more as a system recalibration. So we went back to the business problem. We checked the box on the optimization. And then we gave the client a 3-year roadmap to bring the brand to the highest distinction it has ever seen. So it's more about going back to your brief, making sure that we're checking the box on the needs, but then asking questions like, how might we influence a communication agnostic era of creativity for the brand? Is there a way we can actually use our insights to impact the product? Is there a way we can use the insights to impact any internal systems that actually help in brand building? How might we provide a future-facing roadmap of evolution and adaptability, where we're not just creating this beautiful campaign, but showing what it means in the larger vision of the brand? How might we create an actionable system of improvement and optimization, where it's modular, where we're able to tweak different things based on how the audience and the marketplace is responding? And then how might we provide speed and velocity of activation, where we not just have great ideas, but also nimble ideas that are able to balance quality while still having applicability at the right moment in the marketplace? So that's evolving client needs. Moving to the next shift of evolving technology, I'll just start by asking a question. Raise your hand if you're excited about AI. Okay. Raise your hand if you're slightly threatened by AI. Okay, I'm a little bit of both, I have to admit. But I think there's two facts that I want to address. There's so much conversation going on about how AI is here to take our jobs. Well, fact number one is your job did not exist 50 years ago. The discipline of strategy did, but brand planning, creative strategy, brand strategy, whatever you choose to call it, did not exist 50 years ago. But if we've learned something from our ancestors of Sun Tzu and Machiavelli and Ford, it is that the definition of strategy changes based on what the world and the culture and the marketplace needs at that time. So in this time, I think it's safe to not be scared of AI, but instead befriend it and use it to our advantage, because really AI is what you make it out to be. It can be incredibly robotic or very Socratic based on the questions you ask. And strategists ask pretty good questions. It can be lazy or genius based on the input you provide. It can give you an average finished product or extraordinary raw materials to then build further using your human creativity. Or it can be an output of a human creative process or an input into a human creative process. So it's really about how you befriend AI and use it to get farther and not just faster. But the second shift that I am personally so excited about is that all of humankind is about to get really creative. I'm sure you're seeing it in the worlds around you, not just in advertising, but in art and education and filmmaking. My 7-year-old niece wrote a screenplay. I didn't even know what a screenplay was at 17, I think. A friend of mine who actually lives in Brooklyn, she's an architect, she sold an art activation using AI. I also heard about this filmmaker in France who created a pilot using AI. So that distance between thought and output has significantly reduced, and you no longer need extraordinary skills to create something. You just need a good idea, a stable internet connection, and a smartphone. And when creativity becomes an accessible norm, the bar for superior creativity is even higher. And that is what will be noticed by the marketplace, sell to our clients, and that's our survival mechanism for this agency, for this industry. And that delta between creativity and superior creativity is an output of creative discernment. Discernment is such a beautiful word. I feel like we rarely use it. I don't use it, but when this word came to mind, it made perfect sense, because it literally means the ability to be able to identify as distinct or separate. And someone said in the morning today that if everyone's using AI, it will lead to a little bit of a sea of sameness. So that discernment emerges from collaboration and collective insight, far surpassing the computational strengths of AI. When creativity becomes an accessible norm, it's not just you as a strategist, but the magic that you have with your account counterpart, your client, project management, production, finance, operations. It's that collaborative insight that will help us create work that ultimately rises up in the marketplace. And so my way in for this second shift of evolving technology is nothing to do with technology. In fact, it's everything to do with leaning into your humanity and making partnership your superpower. The common language, lingua franca, that you create with your account counterpart and your client counterpart is what will lead to ideas that are relevant to the past, present, and future of the brand. The common language that you create with your creative partner is what will push boundaries in the marketplace and in culture. The common language with your media counterpart is what will lead you to identify ideas that cut through the noise and punch through the media weight. And the common language you create with finance, so incredibly important, is what will help you identify ideas that balance speed, quality, and the use of resources. So befriend AI, master it even, but lean in even more into your humanity and make partnership your superpower. And then going to the final shift of evolving talent, forgive me, might get a little passionate here, but I am an immigrant, I'm a woman, I'm a person of color, and we work in an industry where there is such a huge push for diversity. I have, earlier in my career, sometimes felt a little bit like a diversity hire. Like I had more of an aesthetic token of representation, role to play in a room versus a true purpose. I still remember that I was asked to bring up a Bollywood example in a meeting once, which I'm always down to talk about. So if any of you want to talk about it, meet me later. But in that situation, it felt like, really? Is that my role to play in this meeting? Until one day, my manager then, her name is Archana, she found a specific strength in me, which I didn't even know of, and put me in the right room to shine, moving both my career trajectory and the bottom line. So we have the right intention to bring in diverse talent. It's important. But we sometimes don't know what to do with them. And in this environment of change, it's important more than ever to leverage cognitive diversity. Because magic happens when different minds collide. And talent is really the thread that ties together ever-expanding client needs and an increased need for superior creativity. Talent are the ones that are able to identify what the client needs, how you need to push the envelope, and discern the right kind of creativity. So how do you define capable talent, right? Diversity is such a singular word. It means so many things. It means my cultured perspective, my gendered perspective, the way my brain works differently than yours, our diversity of lived experiences, interests, leanings. It's not really the textbook definition that we sometimes default to, which is how we look or where we come from. And diverse capabilities serve as the source of innovation. Today, I am so proud to say that the team that I work for right now is perhaps one of the most diverse teams in North America. Very thoughtfully curated by our EVP strategy lead, Kevin Ritchie. The team embodies diversity in thought, race, gender, ethnicity, age, interests, leanings. And because of that, we bring forward a lot of individual differences that allow us to accurately represent the American population for the US Army. So diversity isn't just an altruistic thing that a company does because they want to be nice, or it's a definitive business case. It boosts innovation by upwards of 20%, and it generates accelerated learning in the face of new, uncertain, and complex situations. But what's a shift without attention? The environment is signaling a different reality, and there is a massive disinvestment happening in DE&I across the industry. This is in advertising, tech, all of corporate America. And while it's sad, it feels like we took a few steps back, it's also the perfect response, because in times of change, the first reaction is often shock and withdrawal. We saw it in the pandemic, where we decided that we needed to be cooped in because that was the right thing to do. That's what kept us safe and allowed us to survive through that time. But that's where the change manager steps in. We are at an inflection point to separate what's performative, the performative side of D&I, to what's purposeful, the application of it. And there's no better team or discipline in advertising that's good at the application or at approaches. So at DDB, we're prototyping this new system that I'm so incredibly proud of. It's a 3-step process of identifying diverse strengths, training based on what those strengths are, and finally casting in the right opportunities so that talent is able to embody those strengths against business problems, not just from the lens of building a more diverse team. And so my way in for this shift is to create not just the most diverse team, but the most capable team. As we bring in talent, as we interview talent, as we are talent, look for the kind of teams that allow you to exercise your unique capabilities And for managers, curate your team thoughtfully. Think about the capabilities that you want to build, solidify your strengths, and align them to business problems. And in doing that, you're not just going to create work that breaks through in the marketplace, that gets you your next promotion, but it actually is inclusive, thoughtful, and capable of moving society forward. So to bring it all home, ushering in the next era of marketing requires us all bridge builders in this room to broaden the plane of opportunity as we think about client needs, not just thinking about advertising core, but thinking about the meaning of advertising to the business overall. Turning your partnerships into a competitive advantage by befriending AI, but actually leaning into your humanity even more, and curating your capabilities and leveraging the business case of diversity. It was such an honor to be in this room today, and I cannot wait to see the next era of marketing that we all usher in together. Thank you.
We have time for a couple of questions. Your story about your manager recognizing your unique strengths, how'd she do that? And how can we help other managers do the same?
It's a really good question. I think it's, again, discernment in some way. It's being thoughtful about the strengths that someone is bringing to the room. It's often not the loudest person in the room, but thinking about how the quietest person in the room is bringing something that often goes unnoticed and shining a spotlight on it. So I'd say strategists are great at observation, and a lot of times we're doing observation for our clients, for businesses at large, but that observation is also so important internally.
This one may be a little bit cheeky, but what if I actually don't like change? Is there any hope for me?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think it's one thing to like or dislike things, but it's a completely different thing to be able to survive. And I think if we want to survive, we kind of have to put up with things we don't like. I think we're doing it across a lot of realms of society, to be honest. So,
thank you so much.
Thank you.